Hey everyone, my name is Chris Lambert. On this channel we talk Kanye West, and it is time to talk Kanye and politics once again, everybody's favorite subject matter. And the other day I made a video getting into this emerging talking point that Kanye's presidential bid is bolstered by Republican operatives, or that it's part of a Republican strategy to steal votes from Biden. And we talked about two perspectives on it. The one Seth Abramson had, which essentially positioned Kanye's entire campaign as part of this strategy and made Kanye culpable and a willing piece of operating this campaign to hurt Biden and help Trump, where Joy Reid had a similar take, but her perspective was that Kanye's campaign was essentially doing its thing, and now Republicans have seen this opportunity to use Kanye and are jumping in and using him despite his mental states and et cetera, et cetera. So the one made Kanye an active contributor, and the second made him more of a, I guess, byproduct of this strategy, or being used by these people to try to do the exact same thing. Either way, it came down to hurting Biden's chances in the general election, because at this point, our system's so two-party oriented that almost any time there's a third-party candidate that's gaining any traction, there's backlash to the fact that it's just considered a spoiler candidate, that they have no real chance, and that in these swing states where the margin of votes can come down to a few thousand or 10,000, 20,000, if you have a viable third party, or just a third party candidate that's going to take 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 votes, that can absolutely affect who wins a state. For example, in the 2000 election in Florida, Ralph Nader got 93,000 votes, something like that, and Bush ended up beating Gore by 527 votes. That's not to say a majority of those 90,000 would have all gone Gore rather than Nader. I mean, it still could be that they would have voted Bush rather than Gore, but you can just see that the third party potentially had an impact. And that's why a lot of people get so up in arms about a third party candidate at this point. I think even though the fact that so many of us want a third party, we're kind of exhausted by the two party system. You have people that think this election is too important for a third party to matter here. So people get really hung up on this and what it could be and what it could mean, and it makes it like very heated. So we're looking at that, and we're going to go through this article and I'll get into more of my thoughts there, but I think this will shine a little bit more light on the conflict that's kind of there and the perspective, and we can get into supporting any of those points or talking against any of those points. So first up, we have essentially these four paragraphs. One elector trying to get rapper Kanye West on the presidential ballot in Wisconsin is married to a former chairwoman of a Republican county committee and was photographed with President Trump at his inaugural. In Arkansas, a Republican operative who signed West's ballot petition was at one point interviewed to be Trump's campaign manager for his 2016 bid. And West's ballot petition in Ohio was signed by a lawyer who has previously represented state Republican campaign committees. West's presidential effort has largely sputtered since he formally filed to run as an independent. He has held just one campaign rally where he appeared on stage wearing a bulletproof vest, yada, yada, yada. But in at least 5 states, Republican activists and operatives, including some who have publicly supported Trump and a lawyer who has worked for his 2020 campaign, have been involved with efforts to try to get rapper on the November ballot, according to an examination by the Washington Post of public filings and social media posts. Their involvement raises the specter that his candidacy is being propped up by a GOP-driven effort to siphon votes from presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden, which is exactly the crux of the operation. But this is one of the strange things to me, because when it comes to electors and signatures, right, to get somebody on the ballots, the elector is part of the electoral college, and every state has a certain number that correlates to their electoral college votes. So that voter casts one of the electoral college votes. But in order to get on the ballot, you have to get some number of them to say that they would vote for you if you won the nomination, which is just a formality and really just shows that you have a connection, you have somebody buying into you. It's not any kind of very serious thing. It's not like if they said, I'll only vote for this person. That's actually legally what they can't do. So it's more of just like, yeah, we jump through these hoops to be able to get on the ballot. So the fact that this Republican elector, or somebody that is Republican is an elector, said that they would vote for Kanye if his name's on the ballot, or supported Kanye to get on the ballot, isn't necessarily a big deal, unless you're just saying that if they're so Republican and so in favor of Trump, why would they ever support Kanye? That makes no sense unless it's part of this giant scheme. But you also don't know how often they say yes to other people. Like, has this elector or any of the other ones said no to everybody else that's trying to run, but then said yes to Kanye? That would be something to me. But I don't know what the rules are for that. If for the most part they endorse a number of people every year, or they're really picky and ticky tacky over it. If it's the former, then it's not really a big deal. And if it's the latter, I can see why you would come up with more of a theory around it or think that it's more serious. But at the same time, Kanye has also identified himself as Republican and is really putting himself into Republican circles. So if he's going to get an elector to back him, the odds are that he's going to a Republican elector rather than a Democrats or anyone else. And these electors, most likely, because it is America, are going to land one side or the other on the left or the right. So I don't know how surprising it is that an elector is just like, sure, I'll help you get on the ballots. And then in Arkansas, somebody that signed West's petition was interviewed to be part of Trump's campaign. Again, that same thing. Why would somebody that likes Trump so much sign this petition to get Kanye on the ballots? I would just say that it could be a nefarious thing, but also the fact that you have Kanye, who is a conservative at this point and is a celebrity at that level. Is it so crazy that people would just sign the ballot to see what happens to get Kanye on the ballot? I'm not saying that this isn't the case, right? Or trying to defend any negative response to Kanye. I just think it's a little weird to assume just it has to be anyone that's involved in this that has any kind of conservative ties in any way, shape, or form means that their support of Kanye has to come from some conspiracy to steal votes. That it can't just be that someone's like, yeah, I like Trump, I'm going to vote for Trump, but Kanye's trying to get on the ballot, all the more power to him. That's what kind of drives me crazy, because I see that as a very viable response. And you see that in this paragraph down here. Jason Miller, a senior campaign advisor, also said the Trump campaign was not involved in helping West get on the ballot. But rather than discouraging the effort to put another competitor on the ballot, Miller added that he believes West's efforts on behalf of prison sentencing reform have been admirable. All of the Lights is a great song. The full extended mix of Runaway might actually be my favorite. That's one of my jams, Miller said when asked about the West effort. And you could view that as either way, right? You could view that as somebody that just honestly likes Kanye West's music and is entertained by the fact that Kanye's running. So it's just like, yeah, I like these things that he does. Go ahead and run, because it's not, while it is a two-party system, America still has people trying to run for office and trying to start other parties. Is it that part of the democratic process? So you can make a whole spiel like that about it. Or you could say that this guy is just part of the conspiracy, so is just kind of deflecting by saying, yeah, I like that Kanye did this, and I like his music, even though he may not ever listen to Kanye's music, etc., etc. We don't know enough information either way about this person to know if they're just lying to us because they're in on the strategy, or they like Kanye enough, and even though they're politically aligned one way or support Trump, it doesn't mean that that makes any other person that could get on the ballot or Kanye's efforts somehow not something that they would support, right? Okay. A spokesperson for West's campaign did not respond to requests for comment. Asked by a reporter for Forbes this past week if his goal was to take votes from Biden, West said in a text message he was walking to win. Told he could serve as a spoiler in the race, West responded, "I'm not going to argue with you. Jesus is king." And that's the other nuance of the situation, is that maybe there is an operation to use Kanye as a spoiler to siphon votes whether those are minority votes or like young people of any race that just like Kanye's music and aren't really aligned to either political party, that would just rather vote for Kanye than vote for anybody else, whatever the reasons. Uh, Kanye may not care, right? That's one of the things. Like, he's doing his own thing. He might just be running for president, and probably is running for president because he wants to have that experience. He wants to see what it's like. And if he's seriously going to go about it in 2024, then the 2020 experience is good for him. That's one of the things with Kanye, is that he iterates. He tries something, sees how it works, and then goes back to the drawing board and comes back. He did it with music. He did it with fashion. He did it with essentially like Nike into Adidas. Like, he's always learning from these experiences. So I don't know if it would matter much to him what anybody else is doing or what his role is. He just thinks, I'm going to do my thing. But he's also been very vocally against Biden. So I think the fact that if somebody said, like, you'll hurt Biden, he's just going to say, okay, like, I don't really care either. So at this point, if there are Republicans that are trying to get him on the ballot in these swing states so he can hurt Biden, I don't know if that bothers him that much. What was the thing that he said? Like, he did an interview and he said it's either going to be me or it's going to be Trump, and that's what it's going to be. So that was 2 weeks before this, 3 weeks before this. So you can see that he's like already like anti-Biden in that capacity. So West's shoestring campaign appears to consist solely of a bare bones website that until Saturday featured only a hand-scrawled message from the performer asking supporters to sign a petition to help him get on the South Carolina ballot. He did not ultimately submit paperwork in the state where he held his sole rally. His newly updated site features a montage of disparate images, including a picture of Jesus. This is the site. You may remember that from his tweet the other day. And this was from a radio interview that he did in South Carolina before his rally. And he essentially just read this list, like the 10 things that were important to him and what they meant. So faith and economy, education system, etc., etc. Okay. West's campaign has so far filed petitions to appear on the ballot in 10 states, but some of those submissions, as in New Jersey, have been found insufficient by state officials. Others are still being reviewed. Yeah, this was on... Illinois found that 60% of the signatures the campaign submitted were invalid, leaving West without the required 2,500 signatures to appear on the ballot. The campaign can still challenge the finding. Yeah, and despite his campaign struggles, there have been a flurry of activity by GOP operatives to get him on the ballot in recent weeks. The effort has been particularly striking in the swing state of Wisconsin, where Trump defeated Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton by less than 23,000 votes. So this gets back to what we were talking about earlier. Studies have shown that the turnout among Wisconsin's black voters dipped significantly that year, likely contributing to Clinton's loss. They're expected to play a key role in the presidential vote again in November, as is every group. On Tuesday, as local reporters watched, West's ballot petition was delivered to state regulators by Lane Rutland, a Madison lawyer who is the former general counsel for the state Republican Party. So I got into a big conversation on Twitter with somebody about this, and they pointed me to an actual attorney that I asked. And both they and the attorney were, and this is where maybe I get too like narrow and pedantic, but Lane worked for the Trump campaign. You can see that here. She was listed as an attorney representing the Trump campaign on a document filed in a lawsuit against a local television station. So the station had run a anti-Trump campaign ad, and the Trump campaign was trying to get it taken down, and they brought in Rutland to help. Then Kanye is trying to get on the ballots, and he hired Rutland to help. So there are people that see this lawyer working in any capacity for one campaign and any capacity in the other campaign as a conflict of interest. And in law, that's a really big deal. Like, it's one of those things that, you know, if two people are getting divorced and the divorce attorney had any kind of connection to one of them or the other, had talked to one of them or the other, it's a conflict of interest and they can't then work for the person. Or there's an ethical question that comes into the fold. Like, these ethical questions come up all the time. So you have people that just view like, okay, she worked for one campaign, she can't possibly do anything for the other one because that's conflict of interest. But for me, and how pedantic I can be with these things, it's just like, okay, she worked on one lawsuit with the campaign about a TV ad and just getting the TV ad taken away. That has nothing to do, and the impact of that case or the result of that case has nothing to do with whether or not Kanye could get on the ballot. And getting Kanye on the ballot has nothing to do with that TV ad. If she works to get Kanye on the ballot, it's not affecting what that TV ad does in either way. And if she gets a TV ad taken away, it doesn't affect Kanye getting on the ballot in any way, shape, or form. So I don't see that it's that big of a deal, but all these people and somebody that's in the actual law world thinks it's a big deal. So that's interesting. But that's one of the reasons why this has come up, because they just say she worked with the campaign or she's working with the campaign. So how can she work with the other one? And again, like with most things with Kanye, it's one of those things where there's the macro way that things are being looked at, and people have a response based on that, like campaign. And then the micro, where you look at the details and you're like, is it that serious on the actual specifics? Yeah. And then this. To get on the ballot, Wisconsin law requires a candidate to submit signatures from between 2,000 and 4,000 state residents and identify 10 people who would serve as electors should the candidate win the state. Of the 10 electors listed on West's petition, the Post found at least 6 appear to have ties to the Republican Party. Again, Kanye's a conservative at this point and said that he would run as a Republican if Trump wasn't the nominee. So I don't know why it's all that strange that he would ask these people if they would be his electors, and they said yes. Again, it comes back to the fact that you would assume that they would say no because I only want Trump to win, but people can have a gray area of saying I want him to win. I'd also like to work with Kanye. Like, how cool would it be for me to say I was an elector for Kanye, or I want this connection, or I could see Kanye having a role in politics in the future and I want to be on his good side right now. Like, there's so many reasons that aren't just this is part of a big strategy to steal votes. That, again, I'm not saying that's not the scenario that's taking place. I just don't like how single-minded the discussion is about it, or how reductive it seems to be that people are dismissing any other reason why somebody might sign on to do this, or why somebody might be helping Kanye. They included Fred Krumberger, whose wife, Marion, is the immediate past chairwoman of Wisconsin's Brown County Republican Committee. According to pictures she posted on Facebook, the two attended Trump's inauguration in 2017 and were photographed with the new president at an event standing in front of the U.S. and Wisconsin flags as Trump flashed his signature 2 thumbs up. I mean, does it really matter that much that he would then just say, I'd be an elector for Kanye? Like, I don't... Another was Jay McCoy, listed as an officer on the website of the Young Wisconsin Republicans. The Facebook page of a third West elector, Terry Steinbecker, features a banner that includes Trump's name and a bald eagle and a profile picture featuring the slogan of the conspiracy movement, QAnon. Okay, maybe that one's a little more shocking. Yeah, and then it just goes on and on. Going down. Yeah, the effort to get West on the ballot was decried by David Crowley, a Democrat who took office in May as the first black executive of Milwaukee County. Crowley said the effort appeared aimed at peeling off minority voters to boost Trump. This is the Republican Party really trying to take advantage of someone's mental states. It's appalling. It's insulting. Quite frankly, I can't believe they're really doing it. Let's see. And then he had 2 formal challenges to his candidacy were filed on behalf of Wisconsin voters. And this is where it gets a little strange too. Included signed affidavits from people who had signed the petition for his candidacy, but said afterward they were misled about its purpose. One said he was told only that it was related to voting. Another said she was told she should sign simply to indicate that she was registered to vote. Kanye would not get my vote, and I think it's a joke that he's running for president, the voter swore. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like somebody would make that statement, would willingly put her name on the signatures to get Kanye on the ballot. And it said that even in Illinois, some of the names on the signature page were like Mickey Mouse and Bernie Sanders and even Kanye West himself. So all these like fictitious names, fake names, and where that comes from, right? And that happened in New Jersey as well, all over the place. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, that's essentially, I mean, brings us back to everything. There's nothing more new in the rest of the information. Um, and we have here this page that had Kanye's more of his policy stances on things. And then Democrats in Wisconsin have asked state officials to block Kanye West from standing, claiming that he used bogus signatures like Mickey Mouse and Bernie Sanders. And then there's this Rolling Stone article. There's good reason for Biden to fear Kanye's candidacy. And it's more of just the impact on third party candidates in the election, which they talk with some woman that is really involved in that. Here. Bittencroft. Okay, here. Just spoke to political scientist and election forecaster Rachel Bitecofer. And you can see that there's just more stances from her about the Trump re-election strategy and why aiming for a third party to take away votes would be part of their strategy, looking at 2016 and the seeming impact that Gary Johnson and Jill Stein had on several states, taking tens of thousands of votes from either of the two main sources. And again, the flaw in that is assuming that all of those votes would have gone to Hillary, right? Rather than being equally distributed among Trump or Hillary, or even if it was, 55, 45, 60, 40, what difference that would make in a state like Wisconsin where Trump still got 23,000 votes. That's a lot of ground to make up from the third party. But just from her perspective as a professional in this field, the third party candidates had a huge impact on Trump's success. So how do you recreate that in 2020? Which goes to support why there would be maybe more movements in Trump's campaign to make this happen, and at least puts forward at least the best theory I've seen about why this could be taking place. And it doesn't assign blame either way to Kanye or anyone else. It's just saying, like, this is what the campaign would be doing if they were looking to do this. And then there was this article here. Could Kanye West be charged with electoral fraud? And it actually notes that this guy here, Mark Jacoby, whose company Let the Voters Decide has been collecting signatures for Kanye in Ohio, West Virginia, and Arkansas. While working for the California Republican Party in 2008, Jacoby was arrested on voter fraud charges and pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor. So that doesn't help the fact that people aren't taking Kanye's campaign seriously in that way. But the short of it was, it didn't seem that Kanye would be liable to go to jail for this, since he's not the one out there collecting signatures and forging signatures on some of these things. That's good, at least. We won't be seeing Kanye go to jail anytime soon, but it does point things for his campaign in 2020 in kind of a bleak picture. And I'm sure it's only going to either get more intense or fall away completely. I don't feel like there's going to be a happy middle ground here. But as he continues to run and push further into the election process, we'll see probably the media attention ramp up in this way, because it seems like the knives are out for Kanye's political campaign if these are the articles being written, and the consideration is already so one-sided about what all of this means. So we'll see where we go from here. Until then, if you want to support the channel, the easiest way is liking, subscribing, and commenting, as those things tell YouTube that this is a channel people enjoy, and they show it to more people, which helps us out a lot. And then the thing that we're most well known for is our line-by-line lyrical analysis of Kanye's discography, from The College Dropout to Jesus is King. We're only missing Watch the Throne and Cruel Summer. So you can get all of that content for $5 on our Patreon, patreon.com/Kanye podcast. And it is hours, like 100 plus episodes, 200 hours of content. You're really going to learn a lot about your favorite Kanye songs and come away with a better appreciation for some songs and albums you may not have formerly loved, but may love now. And then also I write books, and my second novel recently came out. So if you want to support my literary career, buying a book goes a long way with that. But until next time, my name's Chris, and stay wavy and keep it loopy. Cheers.